Vitaliy, we're here at a very nice breakfast that you generously sponsored. You did the same thing last year. In fact, you had multiple sessions this year. You didn't have to do it. You wrote a book called Soul in the Game, which is about everything but investing. You didn't have to do it. You write many blog articles about all sorts of things that, frankly, if you were, let's say, a senior manager at a big investment fund, I could see the CEO saying, Vitaliy, these things are a distraction from your investing career. But you do those anyway. They're very important to you. Can you explain why you put so much effort into non-investing things?
James, thank you. Freddie Mercury said, there must be more to life than this. And I feel there's so much more to life than just investing. And by the way, I didn't realize it right away. But as I started writing about investing, I started writing about other topics and about family, parenting, Stoic philosophy. And I started to interact with my readers, and it became a very important part of my life. And I honestly get a lot of joy and satisfaction from this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of became part of my. That became a very important part of my life, and I love doing it. So why not?
Yeah, and I mean, you've helped me as a parent, and this may sound funny, but I remember one of your blog posts was basically the point was, if you don't pay enough attention to your kids, there's some molester out there who might, and it sounds funny, but it's so true, and I certainly benefited, and I like that your work crosses that blood-brain barrier. In other words, there are people who only want to talk about stocks. Conversely, actually, and I met you at a Motley Fool conference in 2004, 2005. I remember this because you looked like you weren't paying attention. Then suddenly you'd pop up and ask a really, really, really relevant question. And Patrick Byrne later came, the CEO of Overstock, and he said Warren Buffett is not really an investor. He's a philosopher who has figured out investing. Would you describe yourself the same way?
Wow. I mean, I guess if you think about the word philosopher, it's a just basic wisdom of life, right? For the most part. So I think I look at myself as a student of life, a person who I receive enormous satisfaction from learning new things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you put what you learn into mental models, and I guess you create your own philosophy in the process. So I love investing, but keep coming back to my previous answer. I just find that life is so much more than just investing, and this is why I come back to other topics as well all the time. It's just I want to learn more. Like when let me give you an example. I love classical music, and I wanted to learn more about this. The way I would learn more about this if I write about it, and as I write for others, I learn. That's
Totally.
That
To teach us to learn twice.
yes,
Yeah.
because then I start reading more. So that's it's a kind of I find this right balance between when I do things for others. I only do things for others if it's interesting for me. So I write about topics that are interesting to me, and therefore it benefits others. But if it was not interesting to me, I would not write about it.
Got it. Well, you give a lot to others, and thank you for doing that. Now let me get you an investing question. Larry Swedroe recently said that Warren Buffett is not a good stock picker, that he's found certain factors that he applied 50 or 60 years ago, before everybody else does. But if you had some ETF at that time that just applied these high-quality factors, you'd have gotten comparable returns as Berkshire. A, how do you feel about that? And B, do you think, just as Buffett was, Graham's style is kind of looking in the rearview mirror relative to Buffett, is idiosyncratic stock picking going to be on the decline? And are these young kids today that are so good with computers and factors, are we going to see more and more factor investing and less idiosyncratic stock picking?
I see. Well, I think Buffett also benefited from the float from Berkshire.
Yeah,
Because that's basically creates leverage. So I read somewhere that his stock picking was fine, but it's the leverage from the flow that actually amplified the returns. But to answer your question, I think it's easier to compete with others when others are really not competing with you, meaning where people are just buying stocks. So right now we are competing basically with a lot of dumb money, meaning in the sense that people like the ETFs and index funds are buying stocks indiscriminately, and they're doing very little value in stocks. They just buy, and therefore that's not smart money. That's actually dumb money because they're doing no research. It's kind of low IQ money, and I think we're gonna have a renaissance of stock picking again because it's gonna become easy in the future to do well because it's a where thoughtful research is gonna bring I think it's gonna pay off.
The more indexing you have, I mean, indexing is pretty dumb. I mean, you're not discriminating carefully between a good company and a bad company. You're just blindly buying everything.
You're just buying everything, yes, from A to Z. Yes, exactly. And you don't care if it's overvalued or undervalued. You just buy because it's an index.
And you're depriving society, you could argue, of a benefit, right? You should be looking for good companies and depriving bad companies of capital.
Well, listen, I'm all for indexing because the more indexing people do, the easier it's going to be for me to invest. So I think everybody should index, and then my job is going to become easier, and that's great. So
awesome.
I'm pro indexing.
Last question.
Yeah.
A year ago, I wrote an article in Forbes, and just for kicks, I looked at Crunchbase. Crunchbase had 20,000 or 19,000 AI companies at the time. Just for fun, I looked this year, 63,000 companies in the Crunchbase database talking about AI. You mentioned during this breakfast that natural gas, which makes power to supply data centers, could be one way to play AI. On one hand, it seems like the next hot thing, and most AI companies, we've had 2,400 car companies come and go in the US, right? There's a natural cycle. We don't want to play that, but is this too big of a trend to miss out on or not?
Well, I think it's so difficult to figure out who the winners are going to be. And just I was thinking about .com. Remember how many companies work hard and doing .com, and they look like they're going to win, and then they end up being .com dust.
Just a few survivors.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be the same thing. I think it's going to be something very similar.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a time where it's going to become, as time progresses, as dust settles. I think the obvious choices today are priced in a very obvious way as well.
Yeah.
So I'm fine. I don't have to make money on AI. I just need to make money. So if it's going to be on something else, I'm absolutely fine with that as well. There is absolutely no reason why I don't need to own every stock. I just need 25 of them. And if it's going to be an AI stock, great. But if it's not, that's fine too.
I've seen one of those fake dramatic motivational posters that says, for every winner, there are dozens of losers. Odds are you're one of them. It kind of applies to a lot of hot stock industries too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Vitaliy Katsenelson, CEO of Investment Management Associates, thank you so much for doing this. And if I don't see you in Colorado, I go to Colorado every year. If I don't see you there, I'll see you next year, hopefully in Omaha.
James, thank you so much.
Thanks so much,
Always
Vitaliy.
enjoy. Thank you.
Take care.